Yay! Ooh, now I'm so loud. All right, now we'll get me adjusted. And I have an extra microphone if I want it. Thank you all. Thank you, Karen. Hi again. So we can approach the concept of God in a couple different ways. One way that we can approach the concept of God is to try to define God. God is blank. Some say God is an old man in the sky with a long white beard. Some say God is a spirit, or God is an energy force. Some say God is like the Force in Star Wars. To quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. Some might say God is the earth, or the whole universe, all that is seen and unseen. In one place, the Bible simply says God is love. Some people say they don't believe in God, to which I usually say, tell me about the God you don't believe in. They might respond, well, I don't believe in a God who watches over us and keeps score of every good or bad thing we do, who's making a list and checking it twice. He's going to find out who's naughty or nice. Or I don't believe in a God who helps some people with miraculous interventions while Or I don't believe in a personified or anthropomorphic God. Might I lose my mic again? Okay. Am I good? No, I'm not good. Could be the speaker. Let me try this one. Is this one work? This is handheld 3. Trying handheld 3. Should I move to the lectern? Okay. It never happens. And we have the thing for short people, so I'm going to have to move this. Okay. Is this working? Is this working? Okay, so Zoom is hearing me. All right, I get to project. I'll go over here, though. I like to be over here. So, all of those ideas of what people say they don't believe in, to which I would also say, well, I don't believe in those gods either. If that's the kind of God we're talking about, I'm an atheist too. Or as the famous atheist Richard Dawkins says, we are all atheists about most of the gods humanity has ever believed in. And I've honestly spent most of my life trying to approach God in this way, trying to define or understand God in the largest sense, trying to come up with a concept of God that can be reconciled with intellect and reason and science and experience. And honestly, I think I've come to the end of that approach. I think it's time to approach the concept of God differently. The other way to approach the concept of God is to recognize that we all have something, or maybe a few things, that we treat as gods. Whether we believe in it or not, we all have things or values or concepts that we elevate above all others and treat like a god. We trust in these things. We put our faith in these things. We obey their laws. Of course, money comes to mind. A lot of us treat money as a god. We trust in money. We arrange our lives and modify our behavior so we can improve our relationship with money. We believe money will save us and protect us. We follow the laws of money, and we don't have to define money or think about what it is. We don't have to create a theology of money. We just trust it with our lives. And we sacrifice our time and our labor for money, and we bow down to it. Violence is also a god for many people. I wonder how many people here own a gun. Don't raise your hand. I won't ask you to raise your hand because that might be embarrassing in a room full of liberals. And I'm not judging, because I'll admit, in the past year, with all the crazy things going on in our country, more than any time in my life, I've thought about buying a gun. But I also know that owning a gun says that ultimately, if it comes down to it, if our life depends on it, we trust in violence. We believe in the power of violence. We have faith that violence will save us, at least in some situations. That's what having a gun means. If it comes down to it, owning a gun means we are ready to follow the laws of violence. That in some situations, at least, violence is our God. And whether or not we own a gun personally, we're all part of this nation that has regular mass shootings, a massive military budget, supports the genocide in Gaza. We are a nation that grovels at the feet of violence. And we might treat other things like a god too, like our phones, for instance. People are always bowing in prayer to their phones. Many of us even treat substances like a god. Some of us treat certain political leaders like a god. I can't think of anybody in particular. And some of us treat our nation as a god. If we define God as something that we ultimately trust, something that dictates how we live, something the laws of which we obey, then we all worship some kind of God, whether we define it or not. And I actually prefer this way of approaching the concept of God, not trying to define the indefinable reality, not trying to say just the right words, so we feel like we have put a handle on the mysterium tremendum, as it's sometimes called. I mean, who really cares what we say? The question is, what does our life show? What do our choices demonstrate? These questions reveal our gods. There is something honest about this way of doing theology. I also like this way of approaching God because it opens the door for some sense of agency on our part. Although we may show where our true allegiance lies by our behavior now, still we can at least try to choose another way of living, another highest value. If we are honest about where we currently are, what we are currently unconsciously treating as a god, maybe we can then start to consciously choose something else. And so what will that be? I guess it's up to each of us. But given what I've seen in this world and in human relationships, like family and friendship and kindness to strangers, I think what I want my God to be is love. I may not act like my God is love, but if I can choose which God I follow, love is the God I want to choose. Love as in the power that attracts each of us to each other, that attracts us to beauty, that attracts us to vulnerability. Love as in that pull, that compelling force, kind of like gravity, but for life and for souls. That which moves us to kindness and care and compassion. If I can choose what to bow to, and I have to bow to something, I want to bow to love. Even if that goes against everything the world and the society has taught me to worship, I want to unlearn those lessons and learn how to follow the laws of love. We may have heard it said, as I said at the beginning, from the Bible, God is love. That's from 1 John. But saying God is love is taking the first approach. It's attempting to define the indefinable. It somehow reduces what feels irreducible. It tries to squeeze the mystery of all that is into 4 letters. So no, I don't think God is love. But if we have to choose a God, and in fact we choose gods every day and reveal those choices by how we live, then I want to try to claim the power to make the choice consciously instead of unconsciously. And if I have that power to choose my God, then I choose love. God may not be love, but I want to live like love is God. To choose love as my highest value, to trust in love, to believe in love, to follow the laws of love. Now, I'm talking about all this tonight on Christmas Eve because I believe that the nativity scene that is so ubiquitous this time of year communicates exactly this message, that love is God. The nativity scene of an infant lying in an impoverished crib, being adored by loving parents, is one way of expressing that love is God. At the center, we have this infant, this helpless, vulnerable infant. And nothing inspires love in us like a helpless infant. If we were to ever find an infant on our doorstep, any one of us would instantly love that child. We would pick it up, we would nurture it, we would seek to meet its needs. The helpless and vulnerability of infancy is what compels us to love. And there at the center of every nativity scene we have ever seen is that vulnerable infant. Now pan out from the infant and we have Mary and Joseph. We have Mary, the one who carried the infant in her body, and we have Joseph, the one who, at least from the biblical perspective, adopted the infant. Both adults loving this child as the child loves them back. This scene distills human relationships down to the purest, most powerful, most unconscious love. It is love at its most naked and essential and vulnerable. In the nativity scene, we see everywhere this time of year, love is God. And then for some nativity scenes, that's all you get. Baby, Mary, Joseph. But many scenes follow the biblical story and add many more characters. So you pan out a little bit more and you get the animals. The next closest thing usually to the family is the animals. A donkey, a sheep, a cow, all seem to kind of orbit around this holy family, suggesting that the love that drives us may also drive the non-human world. Now, you may quibble with that, maybe whether animals love, but where do you draw the line? Is a gorilla nursing her baby loving the baby? Is a mother bird that builds a nest and lays eggs and protects the eggs and then feeds the children with her own mouth, is that not love? The animals in the nativity scene remind us that love is a more fundamental force for all living things than we tend to think. Pan out further, and you get shepherds coming into view, and then magi, the whole of humanity represented by the very poor who live outside among the animals, and the very wealthy, traveling great distances to offer expensive gifts. All of them compelled by, driven by this infant. Pan out again, and we get angels, or a host of angels, and a star even. The whole cosmos, other worlds, other galaxies, all that is seen and unseen, oriented around love. Love is God. And so as we face the realities of what our country is, maybe not what we wish our country were, but what is becoming increasingly clear of what it is right now: racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, imperial, murderous, afraid, callous, cruel, and intent on destroying creation. You might say that's all too harsh, but if these things were not true about our country, why are they so hard to stop from happening? As we face the reality of a genocide in Gaza paid for by our tax dollars, as we face what's happening in the waters of the Caribbean and the Pacific, as we see further afield at Ukraine and Sudan and Myanmar, as we watch on our own doorstep as our neighbors are kidnapped by masked police, maybe it's time to stop pretending we have any idea how to define God, any idea what God is like in the largest, most ultimate sense. And if we could define God, who really cares if we can't stop the world from unraveling around us? And maybe it's also time to stop denying that we are already worshiping gods, whether we know it or not. None of us are truly atheists in the way that we live. To stop denying that we already worship the gods of violence and greed and death. So given these realities, can we find it in ourselves to choose differently, to intentionally choose a different God? On this Christmas Eve, as we look to the day when we celebrate the love expressed in the vulnerability of an infant, as Mary and Joseph and animals and shepherds and magi and angels and stars all orbit around love, we are offered a very clear alternative to the destructive gods that we have been choosing. What God are you going to choose? What God are you going to follow? We may not be able to define God. It may be intellectually inadequate to say God is love. But if we choose it and if we live it, love can be God. Amen.